Oh, Mr. Jonny Dodge, thank you very much for coming to the show. It's very, very nice to have you here. So I normally get my guests to introduce themselves. So for those who aren't familiar, who is Mr. Jonny Dodge and what do you do?
Hey, well, thanks for having me and appreciate the chat today. But yes, Jonny Dodge. I'm Group CEO and we have a travel group which consists of everything from the world of Formula One to space travel, yacht, jets, and most recently real estate. So it's been an exciting journey to build the group over the last 16 years and fun along the way.
So that sounds like a playboy's dream, that yachts, yachts, jets, and space travel, doesn't it?
I think that's the key to things, right? Doing what you're passionate about, following your passions. That's what creates the opportunity and the excitement in life. So yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to start off by sort of getting an understanding of what it's like to run multiple businesses. If you can take us back to when you were either first starting these companies, what was it for you that made you go, yeah, I think this idea has really got merit, and I think I can really make this work?
Look, I think that when I first started out in my first business, I mean, I was already around that luxury world. I was moved up to London after my or during my master's degree, and that exposed me to that London nightlife, the celebrities, the world of everything that entailed. So that then gave me very quickly a black book of the celebs, the millionaires, the people that I could connect with, and so that evolved into me organizing the Gumball Rally, which was a dream of mine to get involved with, and then going on to run and then own nightclubs. So really, it's always been driven by the customer first, so the opportunity. I haven't kind of gone in search of it, of course, but I've been passionate about things. I was very passionate about Formula One, and that's really where I got my first break, and I'm grateful to Bernie for doing that. So really, it's been find that opportunity where I've already got the customer base and the network and build from there.
Okay. And you've those sorts of fields, and you got sort of charters, all that sort of stuff, yachts, jets, you say space travel as well. I can imagine, especially with the yachts and the jets, the fields are very competitive. And so I wanted to kind of get an insight as to what do you think, without obviously giving away your trade secrets, but what do you think sets you apart and your companies from the competition?
Well, like I said, it was driven by customer first. So with the yacht and jet business launched just over 4 years ago. Again, the world of COVID, Formula One shut down, and it meant that the events industry came to a halt at that time. So we were looking at other opportunities in the marketplace, and we already had a strong platform of doing yachts at Monaco Grand Prix, at Abu Dhabi, and we had that understanding of that network and the high net worth clients. So that was really a platform for customers from where we started. And so for me, it's about relationship, and relationship drives everything. So your priority when starting a business, building those things, is really to build up your relationships within that industry. And it's less about knowing the ins and outs and the details of the industry, and far more about the connections. If you can connect two people, if you can connect the right seller with the right buyer in any industry, that's where your value lies. You don't need to know any details about what that product is or the complications of the process. The reality is you're just connecting people. So I think that people get too caught up in a world of trying to learn the depth of some of these industries. And they always say the biggest disruptors in an industry are people that have never been in it before. So because we don't know the rules. And I think that that's what's such an exciting thing coming into a new industry. And in the yacht industry, you've got hundreds of years of legacy yacht brokers. So the age of the companies you're competing with have had processes and operated in that way for decades and centuries in some cases. So the reality is that if we can come in and break all the rules, because we don't know them, then we're not held by those boundaries that other people create. So it's always about run fast and break things. Is a great way to start in any business, I say. You might ruffle a few feathers along the way, but it gives you that opportunity. So what did we start with? What was our USP? We started with our customers. We had the relationships. That was our USP. And we were also then looking after a younger demographic. As we've seen in the whole luxury industry and travel sector, the reality is taking examples across the in the yacht industry, average age of a yacht owner has dropped by nearly 10 years in the last few years. So it means that your customer base has completely changed. Ultimately, the age of wealth has become significantly lower because of what's been the tech industries and then crypto. It's really opened up a brand new market, and that desire for people in their 20s and 30s to be spending millions of dollars on yachts, jets, and other experiences meant that the legacy marketplace wasn't really understanding or looking after those customers. So for us, that became the opportunity. So it became out of necessity, our relationships with our customers already, that then were looking to do other things and weren't catered for by the existing industry. So I think that's what kicked us off and gave us huge opportunities at the very beginning of what we were doing.
It's interesting because I think with certain other industries as well, when you have someone, you talk about the legacy people that have been in a certain role or an industry for a long time, any sort of essence of change is like met with a lot of like, whoa, people fear the unknown, don't they? So this idea of sort of trying to disrupt an industry and create change. Did you experience a lot of pushback from kind of existing companies, maybe the brands you were working with, anything along those sorts of lines? Or was it quite terrible pun, smooth sailing?
Look, of course, yeah, absolutely pushback. Why would you not get that? Of course, anyone that's been in a legacy industry that's got processes is going to push back. And I think that that's bound to happen and people are going to question things. I think what was great and very fortunate for us is we were able to put our money where our mouth was. From day one, we came into the industry doing some of the biggest deals in history. So we really showcased what we were able to do so people couldn't question what we were achieving at the time. So by breaking those records in the industry, people stood up and looked at us and were like, that's interesting. So I made it then a key part of my role is to make sure I met the CEOs from all our competitors and built our relationships. Ultimately, we were bringing new people into the industry. So that's where the value was created by us. And so I think that avoided anything too much. But in any industry, if you're breaking the mold or doing things, there's always going to be issues. And I'm used to that. And that's the way that it is if you don't want to conform. And that's the opportunity ultimately.
Yeah. And I think I often ask my guests about the sort of skill sets they think they rely upon. And obviously you are a CEO of multiple different sort of groups. So what would you say? It strikes me as communication as being a prevalent one for you. So you enjoy making these connections with these CEOs, building up the rapport. Would you say that was a particular strength of yours? That's you've relied upon quite heavily as a skill?
I think, like I said at the beginning, I think both in terms of your own progression in business, as well as the relationships you create and the wider scope for your clients, it's very much about your community. And also for me, that's a big buzzword for the next few years. Community is a key factor in growth in almost every sector of industry. It's something that we're lacking nowadays, and it's something that we need to spend more time focused on building community. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And the reality of that means that you want to level up to create those relationships. And so for me, that was prioritizing that. And I think that a lot of people don't want to be the dumbest, poorest guy in the room. And that's an aspiration of mine to be that, is to constantly look and strive for that. And it's your ability to have confidence in those environments where you know that you can add value. So as long as you're adding value in those environments, that's where you can then level up. So you're not in a situation where you feel unconfident meeting these people, building relationships. You want to have some values to offer back. So as long as you're in environments where you're offering value to these people that you may perceive as way above you or greater than you, then you're very quickly going to gain those relationships and build on them. So I think that is definitely a key area and skill set, is building those and building that community around you.
Where do you stand on imposter syndrome, because being the dumbest, least smart person in the room is not something that people would welcome with open arms. I'd say people often fear that they're not good enough to be in the room that they're in, or around those sorts of people. So the default would be that's kind of where imposter syndrome would come in and go, yeah, actually I shouldn't be here. You sound like that's never really been an issue for you. What is it that's really enabled you to kind of back yourself and go, you know what, I've got the value here. I know I can give value.
Imposter syndrome, in the reality is that it affects everyone, and it has to me to some extent in the past. But I think that very early on, I had the internal knowledge and confidence in myself, in my ability. I don't need to be a billionaire, a political leader, a company leader to be able to have an interesting conversation with someone be interested in me. And I think that was probably my priority. It's not about being an imposter. It's just having something that's having your thing that people are interested in. So if you can present forward something that you're adding value to your circle you're talking to. So what is it that you do that you're the best in the world at? And it's, again, I say this to my team often, is like, find today the one thing that you're the best in the world at. It might be incredibly niche. It might be whatever. It's your baker shop in your village, in your area that does this particular pastry. But the reality is you're the best in the world at doing that thing. Like, so it's just trying to narrow down your area of scope. But if you can be confident in delivering a very specific product or service, and you know that in this area, in this very narrow vertical, I'm the best in the world at it, and then you spread that vertical. So that gives you that confidence for sure. And I think I was lucky enough to be around that environment very early on, where I realized about imposter syndrome. And you kind of, now I'm in an environment where I'm very aware of the skill sets, knowledge, and understanding of others around me. And so I really don't feel that there's any areas where I'm lacking or feel that I shouldn't be in those rooms. I know that I had a significant amount of value. And I think that that's come over time, of course. But yeah, the reality is some people can feel that, but I think that you level up quickly. And I had great mentors along the way. For me, having Tony Fernandez as a mentor, just when he got into Formula One as well, having him as a friend first and then going into business with him, and having a business partner that owned an airline, a football club, a Formula One team, it was very easy for me to be like, well, why can't I have one of those? Like, that was my reference point, really, from a starting point. So I think level up, fake it till you make it, and keep ignoring it and drive forward, and it'll give you that inner confidence and have that ability to give value back to your community. And people will come to you being like, oh, you're the guy that can do this or that. Like, tell that story, be confident in your story, make it your little niche.
You establish a name for yourself as being the person that can be associated with that thing. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
I've heard people saying before that basically everyone's winging it. No one really fully understands what's going on a lot of the time. And when you said about fake it till you make it, that's, I think half the time you just got to get started, haven't you? And I think people hold themselves back. I do, especially with what I'm trying to do. But it's one of the reasons why I just keep trying to put episodes out, keep, publishing content, and just keep moving forward, because I'm learning along the way. I'm learning what works, what doesn't work. And then in the end, you become known as the guy who looks like he knows what he's doing, even though there's a lot of the swans gliding across the top of the water, but the legs are paddling frantically underneath a lot of the time.
Look, I think it's very easy, for people not to take action, and it's that's a really big issue. It's like, I've failed more times than you've tried is the answer to everyone that hasn't done it, right? Like, they're like, oh, it didn't work for them. Like, I failed more times than you've tried. That is the key message, right? It's understanding the amount, like, how you're going to push those opportunities forward. So the reality of that is that then you can really take big, massive action. And there's no, they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And just take action, and take massive action. That's what separates you, what puts you apart. When I'm speaking to my sales team or something like that, they'll be like, trying a new idea or speaking to some new customers. I've called 100 people over the last week and not a single one has had any interest in anything I've got to say. And I'm like, cool, we'll keep trying. And then another week later, they're completely exhausted, fed up with it. And I'm like, and they go, and I go, did you get a lead? And they're like, I've got one lead out of 200 people. I'm like, perfect. Now we know it's 1 in 200 to get a lead. Now go and do 1,000, you're going to end up with 5 leads. Now you've got a metric. Now you can measure it. Now you can drive something forward. Great. Then what do? They go out and make 1,000 calls. They get 5 leads and they make 5 massive deals out of it. So just take action and take it right now. Like that's the best time to do something. Like you're saying with the podcast, just put it out there. Volume, just keep doing it. 10x every idea you have. Like imagine if it was 10 times bigger than it was. What would you have to put in place? What would have to happen? The reality is if you create a vision that large and dream so big, then you're going to end up in a situation where it by default will be larger. I call it my cheat code because I can just go to someone and be like, right, if this project wasn't $1 million project, it was a $10 million project, this event or whatever it might be, it's like, you're like, well, we'd have to change the venue, we'd have to change all the marketing, we'd have to reach out to the volume of people, the things. I'm like, go do all of that. And then if we end up at 2 million, we've had a massive success. So get everyone to shoot for the stars and hit the moon is the way forward.
So sort of almost pretend as if you are at scale already and you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, act in that way, and then it kind of can help.
I think just aim success, like set up that as your goal. Your goal needs to be so much bigger. I think people don't dream big enough. I think start out from a scenario, understanding if there's one project I'm starting on, I'm like, what if every single project you started, you came in with a mindset of going, how would I affect over 1 billion people's life with this project? And you go, well, I'd have to do this and that, and I would have to look at it. And if that just changes you 1%, like each time, just 1%, you keep looking back at that and you go 1% more. But it's so much easier to see that when you've scaled it so large. When you go like, how do I make things incrementally better? How do I do that? How do I get that 1%? That 1% is very hard to find. But if you look at it where it's 1,000% more that you're aiming for, to find the 1% is a lot easier because you just go, oh, well, here's a huge hole I'd be missing. Let's just do it a little bit. So it's about not acting like you've achieved it, but focusing on that. You can, of course, also talk about when you're talking about your company and your what you do. It's about talking about what you're planning to do, what you're planning to achieve, rather than what you have achieved. Especially when you're starting out, it's creating that platform for discussion that's we're setting out to do this, because then every time you're verbalizing something about the future and a larger scale and what you envisage being the end of this year. If you tell a customer, oh, this is what we're currently doing, it doesn't add as much value as go, well, this is what we'll be doing in a year. By the time you've actually engaged that customer and done that deal, you'll be closer to where that reality is, and they'll understand your journey and your direction. So always speak in that future tense as if what you're working on and where you're heading to.
Okay, that's really interesting, and it's obviously very evident that you're very passionate about what you do, and I've heard you speak of passion being quite a prominent thing for you in some other interviews and articles that you've been involved in. This idea of following your passion is something I've ruminated over quite a lot recently, and I think for many people that risk aversion kicks in quite early on, and they go, well, I could do this where I could continue on what I'm doing quite now and maybe get quite good at it. Or there's this sort of, someone described it as someone clearing, the other version of yourself clearing his throat in the next room. There's kind of that nagging person in the back of your mind going, what if you did this and you did something you're actually passionate about? I think financial implications, and I've heard you talk about don't chase the money first when you're looking at following your passion. But that kind of, I think, it's quite an important bit which holds a lot of people back as well. They could be on a decent salary they are at the moment, but this sort of unknown journey of where they could go and start something new which is relating to their passion, where they could scale infinitely greater than what they're doing at the moment, but it's that short term, am I going to be okay financially? Am I really going to take that kind of big old pay cut, for example, to pursue something that may or may not work? Where do you stand on following your passion then? And a second question, sort of a part B to that would be, is there any standout advice that you'd have or anything that helped you in sort of that pursuit of passion?
It's a huge misconception when launching a business, is that you have to build something and deliver it ready to go. I think I've seen so many startups fail where people invest all this money into building that website or creating this product or going through all the processes, employing all the staff, having everything ready to deliver, and then never find the customer. You've got to start the other way around. And no one started their podcast with the idea of making millions out of it. But you look at the platforms and brands that are existing now, and no one started a YouTube channel, and Mr. Beast didn't come along and just be like, this is going to be worth $1 billion. Like, so the reality is that you need to get into these things not with the mindset of money first. Build the relationships, have the rapport, do these things. So every project I've started, it's not about completely switching overnight. It's about incremental steps. I'm very risk averse. I do take incremental steps. So you can still be employed and come and do your podcast on the side. You can still be employed and start your other projects on the side. And it's relationships. Build them and meet people who have businesses in that industry. Work for them for free. Work for them at weekends. Go and find out what they're doing. Help them out. Get connected with them. Find other opportunities. Connect other people in that industry sector. Before you know it, you'll have such a wealth of relationships in that sector that it will be a no-brainer for you to then be able to start your business and look at opportunities within that sector. But if you try and finance everything first, run your business plan through it, raise investment, it doesn't work that way. You need to have the contacts, the relationships, the experience, always work for free for someone. The biggest opportunities that came to me were through my internships. And I look at the interns that have come through our business. In fact, 2 days ago, one of them just celebrated their 10th anniversary with us after coming to us straight out of school at the time. So, and some have gone on to work for great businesses and done amazing things or set up businesses of their own. So take those opportunities, work for free, do those things, build the relationships, work at weekends until you have an ability and a confidence where you can just pull this off, no questions asked. This isn't some wild jump where you just quit your job because you've come up with a business plan and you try and find a way to finance it. That isn't the right steps. Don't try and make money on your first deal. Do the first deal. Just make it happen. These are all just opportunities sat at your feet, and you're always going to win those deals because someone's going to charge more. If you're offering the opportunity for free or connecting people or building the relationships and you have that, you're going to know the person better. You're going to do it cheaper. Of course, people are going to open up with welcome arms and help you out with all these things. So I think that's the way you build a business to start with. That's how you start out.
Oh, I've never really heard it reframed in that way before. I think when you get into sort of the worlds of social media and it's both, I think, the best and worst thing, because you constantly kind of see these people like who have achieved what they need to achieve. And it's coming through a bit more now where people are sort of starting to, lay down the foundations and they're going, this is what I did. And sort of you can go through the journey with a lot of people, especially around YouTube. But for a lot of people on face value, it does just look like it's like an overnight thing. You don't see the kind of the missed deals, the 1,000 phone calls in a day, the whatever it may be. No one really sees that anymore because it's just these cherry picked elements of people's lives and businesses to go, yeah, this is what we did and this is how we made this many millions. And you think, oh, it makes it look so easy for a lot of people now. And I think it's a trap I've fallen into before as well. I'll be honest with it. I've gone, why is it? How can I not make money when everyone else is making money doing these really bizarre things and random things? And it just looks so easy, but you don't see that. I've got to remind myself that you don't see this stuff behind closed doors. You don't see the failed deals, the long nights, the missed deadlines, whatever it may be.
Well, you only put the rosy picture on social media, right? So people aren't telling you about their failures. And it goes back to that adage of I failed more times than you've tried. Like, keep going. You don't know how many times they failed because they don't put that on Instagram.
Yeah. So you've had the very unique opportunity to be surrounded by, you talked about your black book earlier, very high profile celebrities, ultra high net worth individuals, billionaires. Is there anything that you see in the way those kind of people, let's take that ultra high net worth individuals as an example, is there anything that you see in the way they operate that sets them apart from the rest?
I think two of the key things that I can mention, again, Tony's phrase was always dream big. And that was something that resonated in my head for sure. Dream big and take action. So many things, you're always going to fail if you don't take action. So just start. Whatever it is, just start. Start badly. Start by failing. Start disorganized. Just start. That is what's going to push you forward. Make decisions quickly. Fail quickly. Keep moving forward quickly. Know that everything is possible. Nothing is impossible. The amount of times I've been told this is impossible, this will not happen. And I go and then make it happen. And I prove the science to the team, and it's a great feeling because it gives you that innermost confidence and ability in yourself. But the reality is, keep asking why. Why can't this happen? Get common sense out of the situation. Keep asking why. Take massive action. Dream big. That is your key agenda for building anything and scaling it.
Keep asking why. So it's not something. It's just get started, and I think, looking at the way some of these people that we maybe idolize is more a case of you're stepping over, someone phrased it, stepping over pounds to pick up pennies. So without having that, that foundation of just getting started and building it, don't worry about what the way these people are operating.
Yes.
It's too far along the road. You need to take action first.
People are way too distracted with trying to make something perfect, trying to think there's an ideology they need to follow. It doesn't work like that. If you take action and take massive action at scale, it'll work. It always does. It always works out. I can assure you of that.
Yeah. I'll see you on the other side then. So I think it would be remiss of me to sort of skim over some of the most, these adventures that you're going on. So I know you're quite passionate about adventure. I've seen some quite outlandish requests in the stories and in the news. I know you're involved in the yacht, the F40 that went on the yacht in Monaco. Was it 2023?
We put a yacht in. We just did Abu Dhabi. We had Lewis and George come on to launch the new Mercedes supercar on a yacht we had there in the marina. We've put basketball courts on yachts. We've done loads. Yeah.
I imagine the logistics of that is fairly. It's fairly
cranes and complicated bits, yeah. But that's what makes it fun.
Did you see the guy who put a McLaren Senna in his penthouse in Australia?
Yeah, very cool, right?
That's pretty crazy. What do you think is, so looking at customer requests then and some of the experiences that you've been involved in, what's been like a standout, like some of the most outrageous things in terms of how crazy the idea is, and then you made it happen? What stands out to you?
I think it's usually my requests and my stuff.
Yeah.
Closing down London's race Formula One cars when we set up a street circuit in Canary Wharf and drove the cars around there was an idea we didn't think was possible, and then got approvals by everyone to make it possible. So that was a pretty cool experience, and momentum breeds momentum. And so, yeah, moments like that are pretty exciting to stand there when I've got Formula One cars around me in the middle of London on the streets on a Sunday morning. It feels pretty special.
Yeah, I've got my my little Formula One car right here. Yeah, and in terms of your adventures, then I know I've heard you're an astronaut in training as well. You got your space kind of. Are you still doing the astronaut training at the moment? How's that going?
Yeah, very much. So we launched Space Experiences 5 years ago. We launched it with astronaut training, 0G weightless trips, where we take our customers up on 0G flights. They float and feel that experience of complete weightlessness, which is just a life-changing experience. You've got it's just such a fascinating thing to be spinning in the air and not stopping till you hit something else, and like catching globules of water in the air and things flying through, and just this whole, you start swimming, which actually does nothing, of course, but like you don't really understand how to control yourself. So it's such a fascinating experience, weightlessness, and incredible. So we started with that, and we were doing jet fighter trips and all these amazing things, and then we sent our first customers to space 2.5 years ago. So it's been a real whirlwind journey, that business, and so exciting. And again, that business was launched out of passion and the opportunity to be one of the first travel agencies in the space industry, something that will grow into billions and billions of dollars. And in reality, it already is for private space travel. People have been doing commercial space travel for the last 20 years, going up to the space station. People just probably don't realize it. So it's been around for a long time, but it's a very exciting experience, and something I'm glad to be part of.
So what would training to be an astronaut entail, and what are some of the things that you get put through?
I mean, the main thing is making sure you don't throw up.
Yeah.
It's the training aircraft that we use is called the Vomit Comet.
Oh, nice.
I mean, we take a managed diet before then. It's managing G's, how many G's you can pull, as well as experiencing of weightlessness. All that to get those sensations out of the way, because the value is the overview effect. And that is something that is life-changing. That ability to go up out of our planet, look back down, see the blackness of space, and see the Earth beneath you. With no borders, no issues. You just see this beautiful planet. And that always undoubtedly changes people, changes the way they look at the world. So that is, the overview effect is one of the most life-changing experiences any human can go through, and something that many of us will now get to do in our lifetime with commercial space travel.
I like sometimes looking at the videos of that just prove how infinitesimally small we are compared to the scale of the universe. There's some great animations normally on sort of YouTube and things like that, where they start with, very much like a cell or a microbe, and then it scales right up, and then you realize, shit, I'm pretty small and pretty insignificant when it comes to grand scheme things. And I think that actually helps a lot of the time when you're looking at that, you're going, well, my little trivial matters over in this corner here, in the grand scale of things, don't really matter too much. And that can be used as a tool sometimes. I find it quite useful to kind of help me just push past some of those kind of more small irritations, so to speak, and you go, well, actually, it doesn't really matter because I'm so small, and hopefully, like when I'm like 100, I'll hopefully live to 100, then I'll die and cycle continues. But you're not around for very long in the scale of the universe, and
I think that's very right, and I think that taking your time away from the challenges of business, these types of things, has been what's driven my passion for this exploration and the search of things that are completely opposed to what I currently do. In a world of glamour and billionaires, I get excited by getting shipwrecked on a desert island in the Pacific Ocean, and those types of experiences are incredible. I mean, they make such an impact on you and really do start to reset what you understand about the world. At that point, on a desert island, money doesn't matter. Your connections don't matter. Whether you're a CEO it's not relevant. So that experience of being in that environment, and the only thing that mattered at that time was the guy that could make fire and the guy that could catch fish, like that was the relevance of that situation. Taking away all money out of a situation starts to make things really super clear, because money can mess things a little bit. So having that ability to step back and go, it really doesn't matter. If I sustain myself and live on this island, this is no longer relevant to me. And having that wild understanding that that's the case is just such a powerful experience. And at that same time, I also had no connection with the outside world, no phone signal. So being disconnected from the rest of the world is also a very powerful tool. So I find that in the adventures and exploration I go on is such a powerful reminder of the value of life and our own experiences outside of this modern day constructs of reality and society. If I can go climbing mountains, there's such an interesting fact that I learned along the way is that so much the power of your mind, and that also gave me that inner strength, that ability. Like I was just like the next guy, or worse, to be honest, when I had never gone on a big long run other than when I was at school. I probably never went over the 1,500 meters, and to then scale that up to knowing that I could do a run and then climb a mountain, then climb some of the biggest mountains in the world. That ability to go and summit a mountain and realizing that the majority of that was all up there, and it was the power of one's mind. Because if you're just relatively fit, you can go and climb some of the biggest mountains on earth. And these things aren't impossible. And it's amazing how much is controlled by your mind and how much more you can do than you think you can do. So resetting what you believe is possible. It's questioning that impossible again, because definitely a couple of years previous, I wouldn't have thought that I could have summited the highest mountain on 2 continents in 2 years. Like it just wouldn't have been something I thought was possible. But then you have that inner confidence. Now I can look back at that and be like, look, I have this ability to climb mountains. It gives me that inner confidence that's completely missing from people before. And that strength that you can garner from these experiences is so powerful.
Yeah. I've heard it described as a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. That's how you building your confidence.
Yeah, very much does it.
So I had a guest on, and it's interesting to talk about the mind there and how much more capable. And we tell ourselves a lot of stories, I think, a lot of the time, and about why we can't do stuff rather than why we can. And I had a guest on she's just got the Guinness World Record she did 36 marathons in 36 days, but she's got cystic fibrosis as well. She's done Kilimanjaro. She's paddleboarded like 80 miles from coast to coast. It's pretty crazy what she's done. And she says everything she comes back to is that you're capable, and your body's actually capable of so much more than you think it's capable of. And a lot of it is down to that. It's down to the mind and what you kind of believe to be true until you kind of get past that and prove yourself otherwise. So
yeah, very much.
Yeah, it's interesting. So was that shipwrecking then? Was that intentional or was that by accident?
Absolutely. Yeah, right. We actually took the Bear Grylls films on, and Survivor was filmed on in the Pacific Ocean, and took it outside of their filming time. And we had 6 of us on the island for 10 days because it's just something really unique I wanted to experience. So very powerful journey.
I saw you recently went to Turkmenistan as well, and the Gates of Hell. Yeah, tell me about that.
Turkmenistan, it's kind of, I guess it's close to North Korea in its kind of format and closed off nature. The number of visas they issue for people to come and visit the country is, in the single digits each day. So to visit the country is quite a unique experience. They're not used to tourists, and they have incredible laws, like every car has to be white. Just these mad, and the president there really has created these huge monolithic buildings to showcase the wealth of their country. There, they have huge stores of natural gas, and but they haven't invested that externally. They're building enormous and unnecessary infrastructure, but quite an incredible place. And it seems that the people there are pretty happy. Social media and things like that is blocked, which in some societies I think may be a nice value, to be honest. Maybe it's tarnished us a little bit too much these days. So yeah, it was a fascinating experience, and to go to this incredible pit of fire burning in the middle of the desert is just overwhelming experience. I spent the night there in a yurt, sleeping next door to this incredible just crater in the middle of the earth. So yeah, an experience to remember for sure.
Yeah, I looked at the footage. It looked amazing. It was weird. It was just, there wasn't anyone there. It just, every sort of creative people like, there's no one here again.
Yeah, I mean and I think that what's so interesting nowadays when you look at a lot of experiences. People are craving those. People want to go to places, and it does create, of course, you go to the wonders of the world and they're packed. You go to see any of those things. They're full of humans. They're over like tourists now. There's too many, you know. And even climbing Everest on the very few windows of days there is the ability to summit. People have seen that iconic image that was in the newspapers of a queue to summit Everest, something that is one of the most difficult challenges on Earth, and it very much belittles it. But I think there probably is not enough context given to the very narrow windows of ability to summit, and therefore creating those kind of days when it's possible. So the reality is it is a rarely done feat, but to go to these natural wonders and experiences and it be full of other humans is to be expected. So it's such a shame that we want to experience some of these iconic moments of our lives where we explore these things in peace and solitude. And I was very lucky with Turkmenistan, it being such a remote and inaccessible place. I think I only ever felt that with of course, Antarctica when I went to the interior there, and the Great Wall of China as well, because luckily it's so enormous that you can always find your own little private bit of it. Those types of experiences are few and far between in this populated world now.
Yeah, I think it's almost a bit like, what do you, and especially for, I would imagine for some of your clients as well, how do you make something different for someone who's had the ability to go to some of these places and share in that moment? How do you create something that's different and unique? I think that's probably quite an interesting challenge for you to get your head around.
Well, I think that's something I'm very passionate about, and it's that giving that access to people. And I think that we really, our mission as a group across the business is that we get to influence some of the most powerful and well-connected people on the planet with our experiences that we create with them, whether that be in our residences and resorts, whether it be in our yacht charters, whether it be in the aircraft we supply them, whatever those experiences across anything, or just our exciting adventures. We get that ability to inspire them. And I think it's one of the most powerful tools we have to inspire people through experiences. So I take that honor, and I'm very humble about being able to give people this opportunity, that are huge aspirational people, and give them these experiences.
I read a book called Stolen Focus by a chap called Johan Hari, and he was talking about experiences in it as well, but he was saying how we're in such a digital world now where everyone's enjoying these experiences through their phones, and you have VR and things like that make it it's quite impressive what you can do with virtual reality. But he said he was like baffled when he was at this museum and they were walking around this exhibition, and you could literally see the exhibition and people were watching it and interacting with it through their iPad. And he just couldn't quite get his head around like where we kind of lost this, where it all went wrong between, actually experiencing something and doing it in the flesh. I see it at concerts all the time, especially if it's someone popular. People will record the whole thing on their phone. Like, are you watching the whole thing back again? You might be,
very right, so
like you're not. And it's like, I try and be a bit more intentional in that and go, actually, I'm in the moment. I'm here now. I want to just enjoy it. I don't want to watch it I'll take a couple of clips. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but just the people that watch it through their screen, they're actually there. I'm still a bit like, what are you doing?
Yeah, very much.
Very, very bizarre. So what's next then for Jonny Dodge?
I think I touched on the value I found around community, and how I see that as a big trend across all industry sectors, but certainly in luxury travel. People are so disconnected from each other that it's that ability to connect and reach out in person. So we have a non-profit, the Global Committee, which is our way of bringing together a lot of our ultra high net worth clients, entrepreneurs, and visionary thinkers to talk about impact, things that we can really do to change the planet. So using that as a platform to bring people together, to inspire people. We then, off the back of that, launched Global Base, which is now our residences and resorts that we're building around the world. This, and we've seen this as a new a new way of living. So people now live nomadically. We see this is ultimately the way that the world is going. And what we've now coined as the luxury nomad. We used to have the digital nomad, the guy on his laptop. Now we have the CEO with his offices around the world, with his team, traveling, not on holiday, but traveling for periods of time, 2-3 months, and living seasonally. And the growth and change in that opportunity of people to work remotely, live remotely, travel in larger groups, and experience the world, has then created what we decided would be global base as our residences around the world, which people can live in seasonally. So we've launched our first one in Indonesia, in Bali. Phase 1 of the project opens next month. And the vision is we build these homes around the world for entrepreneurs and like-minded thinkers. So that's an exciting project of ours. We've certainly got a lot of growth still to go in our F1 and events business, challenging the norm, doing more exciting things. And across the yacht and jet industry, I think there's huge growth again in that younger marketplace. So we're here to capitalize on that longer term. Me personally, we're looking at bringing in a group CEO, looking at growing the business, evolving that, so I can focus on the vision and building what I'm passionate about. So lots of exciting things to come.
Awesome. So if anyone wants to find out a little bit more about what you do, is there anywhere they can go to have a look?
Jonny Dodge on Instagram, you'll find me. And then from there, you will go into a whole world of experiences, adventures, and get lost in the excitement of it. So go check it out and find what sparks your passion.
Wonderful. Jonny Dodge, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Cheers, Reece.
No,